And this
Yeah.
brings me to another very interesting question. And one of the things that inspired me to create Dropsmith in the first place is, as we have research on essential oil as a whole, like you said, for lavender. But I found that my research team often things are not chemotyped in research. So, for example, even things like rosemary or myrtle, which is well researched, but which one are we talking about? So, in your opinion, because they're so wild, they can be so wildly different. What do you? Of course, we look at both, but do you think that the summary of the chemical components might possibly give us even more information about that particular oil, of the summary of their properties and what exactly is in the essential oil, than the research on the essential oil as a blend?
Yes, I think if you're just told this is rosemary oil or this is lavender oil, if you don't know what all the chemicals are in there, well, there's two things which you're at risk of. One is that it's not a characteristic lavender oil. So maybe it will have 10% camphor or
Yes.
something, because that is a perfectly natural variant of lavender, but it's heading more towards lavandin.
Yes.
And there's no way of knowing or controlling for that when you're doing your harvest, or, I mean, perhaps there is with distillation, but that's not really my expertise, so I'm not quite sure. But I know that camphor is one of those minor constituents that varies. And because it's also quite a potent constituent, you actually don't want too much camphor in your lavender, because otherwise it's going to start having the opposite effect. It's not going to be sedating any longer, or not as sedating. It might be a bit relaxing, but there'll be the stimulation of the camphor. So a complete listing of the constituents is important. Maybe not down to the 0.01%. That's a little bit overkill, I think. I mean, if you've got 95% of your constituents analyzed and the rest are just a whole hodgepodge of unidentified constituents that we don't know what they are, well, that's probably fine. But the issue which we haven't discussed yet, Melanie, is the concept of potency.
Yes.
Of the individual constituents, because how in Dropsmith you've got such and such is an anti-inflammatory, and then this other constituent's anti-inflammatory, and so is this one, and so is this one, and so is this one. That's wonderful, except at what dose does that anti-inflammatory effect kick in? And that's the next level that we need to move to, I think. But it's also the level to which we don't have adequate research.
Yes.
So, limonene even, I wouldn't normally think of limonene as anti-inflammatory, but I'm sure there are papers that say limonene is anti-inflammatory if you give 5,000 milligrams per kilo, to a rat, whereas something else might have a much lower, lower dosage for the same effect.
Absolutely.
Does that make sense?
Yes, and a sneak peek. I listened to you for all these years. We're collecting that data. We're just figuring out how to show. Yes, I listened to everything you said, and I think the easier way to notice this, but again, we don't know if it works the same way, is the smell, because some constituents dominate the smell, like you say, camphor, so much, and they're at such a low percentage, whereas things like limonene, they can be there at 90% and they're killed by I don't know, a little aldehyde.
That's true.
So this already shows us that interesting dynamics and dosage. So absolutely.
So there is not necessarily a correlation between olfactory threshold and therapeutic potency.
Yes,
Not
absolutely.
necessarily, no. They're separate, distinct concepts. So, and I think some people might be tempted to say, oh, because it's got a very intense aroma and you only have a small percentage in the oil, therefore that's going to be the active ingredient because it's the dominant aroma. And I'll say, not in terms necessarily of pharmacology, no, but in terms of odor impact, Yes. So we've got two different things here. We remember my book with its
Yes,
lovely petals. So that's the psyche, and that's where we've got the odor intensity coming in. So the ones which smell the strongest or have the highest, that you can be detected at the lowest levels, will be very strong in terms of the impact on the psyche, though not necessarily on serotonin or anything. It'll just affect the whole experience of the blend. And then the medicinal one, this petal, is where you're getting your pharmacological effect. So yeah, and
it's
that will depend on the potency.
it's a
Yeah.
very complex topic, because on one hand it does not need to affect, but on the other side, because the smell has such an impact on our emotional, again it does, but different. It is an everlasting topic to research. I think it's wonderful.
Yeah. The other key point about the olfactory aspect is the fact that such a very small percentage can actually ruin the smell of a blend. It stops being pleasant.
Yes.
And what I'm realizing, just the more I think about it and the more number of papers I read, it's like, it's the smell, it's the pleasantness of the smell, the hedonic tone that aroma gives you, that sets you into your relaxing feelings of well-being, feeling relaxed, feeling calm, and all of that. And no matter how supposedly beneficial it is, if it doesn't smell pleasant to the person receiving it, you may as well not give it as an olfactory treatment. Give it
Yes.
in a capsule. If it's
Yes.
stinky, bleh, don't bother.
We actually have a garlic essential oil in Dropsmith. It has tons of research, but of course, no application at all. I mean, who's going to use that? You don't even want to have the bottle. It smells.
Well, I'll tell you who did use garlic oil
Yeah.
was Caroline Ingraham. And
Really?
I saw an amazing video as one of the Botanica conferences,
Uh-huh.
and she was in Kenya in an orphanage for wild animals, and there was an elephant who was orphaned by its mother, and it had been attacked by lions and had a dreadful wound that
Oh,
was
wow.
not healing, and she offered it all the essential oils that she had, and that's how she works. She puts the
I
oil in
remember.
her hand, and the elephant chose the garlic oil and consumed 32 bottles of her garlic, all the garlic
Oh,
oil that
wow.
she had, and it survived and the wound healed. So if you're an elephant, maybe,
You
and you have a
definitely
wound, an infected wound, then maybe garlic is just the thing.
from a lion, So, but I
Uh,
think you do need that mass to be able to handle that. But
I think
yeah,
so.
you can take a look. It really has tons of research. It's an amazing oil. I just wouldn't even dare to buy it because my whole apartment will smell.
So
Um,
stinky. Yeah.
so just to conclude something useful for our viewers,
Yeah.
um, how do we conclude this that is useful for them? First of all, the more you know, the better it is, right? We agree on that. Uh, you know, it all comes back down to your choice and opinion and what you're using this for. So
Yeah.
the significant percentage is dependent on a few things. So one of that is how you will apply this essential oil. Will it be topical? Will it be internal? What will it be for? Then the little
Yes.
constituents can be very important and significant, even at a small percentage. Then next thing we talked about is the smell. So in that case also, a small percentage can be very important because it ruins or benefits the entire oil or the blend.
Yes. But what you haven't got in Dropsmith is odor threshold for the different constituents. So people
Yes,
can't predict which are the stinky constituents. And you
that's
did
true.
say aldehydes, they are some. Like in the citrus oils, you've got nonanal and decanal. And
Yeah.
if you smell those in a bottle, they are revolting, nasty smells, really horrible. But the small, I think they're less than 1% in those citruses, and they just add that sort of citrus peel smell.
So this could
You
be a
know,
great topic for our next monthly surprise. I have people who I think I can ask this, because you can predict some thresholds, like you say, through the chemical classification, and we do have that. This is why I also created it with all these extra classifications. We have around 80 classifications. Do you know that? And
no, that's
yes,
awesome.
yes, we have the typical ones, but then when you break it down, you have 80 actually. Depend if you
Wow.
would see all of them. Yes, classifications, and then we have
Yeah.
over 4,000 chemical components. But for example, you can already know if it's an aldehyde, it will be very dominating. Ink will be 1,8-cineol, it will be dominating. Camphors are interesting. So this could be also useful. I can make a monthly surprise on that topic, and that will already help people just by seeing the colors to know which one will dominate. So if you would like to learn more about this, write down in the comment. Is this satisfying for starters, Joy?
Yes, that's a great idea.
Yes, because it actually,
Yeah.
because I've been working with that topic for quite, well, I can say a decade now. And I have noticed that by the classification tells me a lot about the smell. And
Yes.
actually, when I use the blend tool, and then you can automatically, it moves on the little barrel, the colors. So I choose my drops actually by the percentage of the groups. I already kind of know how it will smell.
How interesting. Yeah,
Yes,
and
yes.
that's the benefit of using the tool often, is that you do get that feel for it. Like with anything, you know, the more you, as you said, the more you know and the more you experience, particularly when you're doing the blending, and you do that, you make up the thing with the colors, as you say, and then you do it in the real bottle, and then you smell it and you go, yeah, got it. And then if I made it the different way, with instead of 522, I made 536, then you go, oh, now I see. So then you can, yeah, you can really begin to see it. But it does depend on having a go and playing.
Yes, it's a decade of learning.
Yeah, even.
Well, for me, and then I just put it on there for everybody to click and to figure it out in 5 minutes.
True, but they won't get that. They won't get the feel
Yeah,
unless they're using it. And yeah, and that's that sort of feedback loop, isn't it? A bit like
it is.
biofeedback. You know, you use the tool and it goes, oh, these are the pretty colors and da da da. But until you've actually smelled the result of what you've created, it's not quite as powerful. I mean, yeah,
You always
it's
need
head.
to work on it a little bit, at least a little bit. We can give you all the tools, but at the end of the day, it's about you, how much you're going to take
Yeah,
away from it. Okay,
exactly.
so I think I asked you all the main questions. I don't want to take too much away from your very special 2 months coming on Synergy. Do you have
Yeah.
anything you'd like to say or conclude with, or some main point for our
Just that
listeners?
I think the key thing is for people to become really curious about their essential oils, and not just to say, oh, it says on the bottle it's X, whether it's lavender or bergamot or yuzu or whatever it might be. You know, they should always ask, well, what does it have in it? Is it a typical one? And let me check and see if Dropsmith's got the breakdown, you know, for this particular blend. Is it from this company, whatever it might be? I know you've got several different
Yes,
companies' oils on there, and the more the better,
we're
because then
getting more
people
and
can
more.
really begin to compare. Yeah, and then starting to get a kind of um, a personal understanding of the smells of the different chemicals. That's key too. Tell you what though, have you considered, I know that a few different companies do this, but just having a little sample kit with the different raw constituents and selling that as a special bonus thing?
Oh, interesting. Interesting thing that might become another bonus for our
I think it might.
exclusive and premium
Yeah,
subscribers to smell different constituents. Because I do this for my students. When we
yeah.
talk about different classifications, then I have constituents so they can smell the constituent and compare it to the oil. It is very interesting. Thank you, Joy. You're always
You're
full of
welcome.
great, awesome information.
And ideas. Well, you see, Melanie, I get to play and you get to do all the hard work. And then you tell me about it and I go, wow, that's so cool. It worked. The game worked.
It does,
Yeah.
it does. So, so in short, chemistry is fun. Chemical constituents are the next level to go to. They can tell us so much more, especially with those rare oils, you know, then we really have a good idea what to look for. And we should really stop back and talk to you forever. Thank you so much for being my absolutely first guest for Monthly Surprise. These surprises will be different. They could be the constituents in your mailbox, or they could be interviews. So let us know what is itching you, so that if we can provide some extra information there. So thank you so much. You're always a pleasure to see you and talk to you.
Yeah.
And thank you all for watching.
Yes. Bye.
Bye.